Majority Report with Sam. A Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, August 13th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Ben Burgess, columnist at The Jacobin, host of Give Them an Argument with Ben Burgess, and author of Canceling Comedians While the World Burns, critique of the contemporary left. Also on the program today, Taliban take 4 more cities in the south. Afghanistan has nearly fallen as Marines prepare to evacuate all Americans. The fight for Kabul looms. Meanwhile, COVID hits Florida children as schools defy Governor DeSantis' mask mandate. Census data is out, shows an increasingly diverse and urban America, but gerrymandering likely to make sure that our politics do not reflect that. Florida, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Oregon at record hospitalizations due to COVID, as the FDA approves an extra vaccine dose for immunocompromised. Speaking of the pandemic, since the beginning of the pandemic, the U.S. has seen more than 9,000 anti-Asian incidences. Meanwhile, in the House, conservative Dems threatened to withhold their reconciliation vote on the budget until the bipartisan bill passes. Lastly, the Supreme Court blocks part of the New York State eviction moratorium that allows people to self-certify that they need help. All this and more on today's program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday the 13th with me, hopefully, to offset that bad luck. Emma Vigeland. Hello, Emma.
Hello. I'm not sure how effective I am in offsetting bad luck. You know, I'm maybe more compounding it.
Well, I guess we will find out.
I guess we're just in this together.
Yes. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see if we can't make it through this Friday the 13th. Many stories to get to today. Really, in many respects, a tremendously busy news week. We will be talking about some of those things to Ben Burgess. We are about to see just increasingly more tragic news out of Afghanistan, and Ben and I will talk about that later. But, you know, this is something a couple of months ago when Joe Biden had said that he was going to leave Afghanistan unconditionally. My first reaction was it is going to be very, very difficult to watch what will happen with Afghanistan to the extent that we pay any attention to it anyways. And it's going to get very difficult. The Taliban will have a brutal regime, particularly for women, and it is going to be horrific. Like I say, we'll talk with Ben more about this later, because we had an opportunity at the very least to avoid this inevitability in many respects. But first, let's talk about the other inevitability that we are not avoiding in this country. I want to play you two videos, clips. The first is Marjorie Taylor Green, who I don't terribly too much interest in, but people need to remember she is the biggest fundraiser in the House on the Republican side.
Yeah, it's from grassroots, just small
Right.
donations.
It's not exactly. She's not getting it all from, some type of network of loaded, gym owners. This is who the Republican Party responds to. And despite the fact that she has no power legislatively, I mean,
They don't care about that, really. It's just a meme machine for owning the libs.
We saw the fundraisers with Dan Crenshaw getting on him because he didn't say Trump, the election was stolen from Trump yesterday. So it's no wonder they like Marjorie more.
Yep. And as we have a situation where you've got 5 states now, I think it is, Florida, Oregon, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, who have record hospitalizations now, higher than at any other time during the pandemic. And this is because, despite the fact, and some of these states have almost 50% vaccination rate, others less. The problem is that when we had 100% unvaccinated in each of these states, including all of the other states, we were acting as if there was a pandemic. We were wearing masks. We were not going out to bars. Bars were closed. We weren't going out and functioning like we were in some type of normalcy. And the problem is that if it's 50% unvaccinated, 60% unvaccinated, 40% unvaccinated, they are going out and behaving as if COVID doesn't exist. And so you're getting more people in the hospital. The Delta variant is certainly more contagious by a factor of like 4 or 5 times more contagious than the original wild type. The R0 is somewhere between 6 and 8, whereas the original wild type was somewhere around 1 and 2. But the RT, which is a way of measuring how contagious a virus is, but also calculates in the factors that you take to mitigate that contagiousness, masks, social distancing, whatever, washing your hands if that applies to the virus. The RT is much higher because we have the context of these societies, of our states and our society broadly, is just not taking it as seriously. And so you've got kids going out there unmasked, they're playing at camps, and they're getting, you're starting to fill up pediatric wards. And this is a real problem. Here's Marjorie Taylor Green pretending that she cares about the science of the FDA approving, moving past the emergency approval into full-on approval.
Which is, by the way, another anti-vax dog whistle. That's really the next goalpost that's the area they've shifted the goalpost to now.
She's outlining it right here. You can see the contours of that very much because she's pretending like, well, I don't know if the science is settled, blah, blah, blah. But she's really saying because if you do this, people are going to be compelled to get the vaccination.
My point is she's just getting this directly from like anti-vax message boards on the internet. This is exactly what they're saying.
Right.
So this is concerning to me, and that's why I'm saying there's more research needed by the FDA before the FDA approves these vaccines. Because here's the problem, Anna. Once the vaccines are approved by the FDA, we are going to see the mandates for vaccines ramp up far more than they are right now. They're going to be mandated, and I fear they'll become law in some cities and some states. Biden would love to make it the law of the land, and I think that's completely wrong. Again, I'm not anti-vax. I am completely for people being allowed to make choices, medical choices for themselves and their families. And I don't think the FDA should approve a vaccine that it doesn't seem to be that effective, especially with COVID-19 raging all over the country. At least that's what the media tells us every single day.
Pause it for 1 second. Pause it.
I'm not going to take it unless it's approved by the FDA fully, but once it's approved by the FDA fully, it's not that effective, and we can't have mandates, and that's what I'm concerned about. Do you see how that's going to be the new goalpost once it does get full approval, which it will, for regular use and not emergency use? Then it's going to be, well, I'm not going to take it because I'm making a stand against the mandate, which, by the way, we already have vaccination mandates for other vaccines.
The fascinating part is that her argument as to why it should not be approved by the FDA for regular use has nothing to do with the science or the safety or the efficacy of the vaccine. It is because if it gets approved, then we're going to be obligated to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Then she shifts into, and it's not even effective, because if you believe the media, so she's implying that the media is lying about the surge of COVID, but also accepting the premise that the surge of COVID is happening, but then denying the part of that the media is also reporting that 99% of the people who are dying, the vast majority of people in the 90s who are hospitalized, are unvaccinated. So she's both accepting that the media says this and then denying that the media says this, and then denying that the media says the other part, to the extent that she accepts that the media is saying this part.
Yeah.
That's where we are at this stage in her first 60 seconds of talking.
Because it gets worse. It gets worse. And I would also love to ask her, too. She's a CrossFit queen. I'm sure she takes a lot of supplements that aren't FDA approved. Maybe we would love to see what is in the C4 she takes before she goes to the gym and gets all riled up at CrossFit. But I digress.
Here, let's listen to the rest of this.
The media tells us every single day. But I've talked to local hospitals here in my district and here in my state. Yes, the waiting rooms get full, but guess what? The waiting rooms are full of all kinds of things, not just COVID, some, car accidents, trauma, other illnesses, cancer, and so forth. But they're seeing about 30% of those numbers being COVID cases. So while the news tries to tell us the hospitals are slam-packed with COVID, that's just not the case. Everyone needs to get back down to common sense and remember that, we're human. We can't live forever. We are going to catch all kinds of diseases and illnesses and other viruses, and we get hurt sometimes. So I'm all for let's be rational with this. Let's be careful. Let's be cautious, and let's not turn into an authoritarian regime that forces shots in arms of people that don't want it.
All right.
Lots to think about there.
There's, I mean, it's almost, the level of stupidity is almost overwhelming. I mean, it's almost like you almost feel like you're drowning in it, but
almost drowning in the water cooler, you might say. Hard to miss that yellow logo again.
Instead of trying to parse through why it might be a problem that our hospitals, which understand, particularly with the complete underfunding of public hospitals in this country, the rise of concentration of hospital owners who are constantly trying to squeeze as much profit as they can out of the hospitals by making sure that hospitals are always at capacity, right? That's the idea. You want no slack. You want there just to be enough beds at all time to increase your profits. This is the way our hospitals are run at this point. Instead of me explaining why the idea that all of a sudden a surge of losing 30% capacity of your hospital because of one disease that is preventable, why that's a problem. Let's play this clip. Bradley, this is a guy named Jason Arena. He did this on TikTok. He's from Mooresville, North Carolina, at least at this point. Just not safe for work warning. He swears in here. I can understand why he does. And just you may want to turn down your speakers. But here is this TikToker, Jason Arena, explaining, not directly to Marjorie Taylor Green, but to anybody who would be interested, as to like why A, it's a problem that 30% of your waiting room is taken up because of COVID, and B, why it's not just a question of people making their own choice about their vaccinations. This impacts society.
Hey folks, how you doing? I just got a quick question about this whole COVID, not getting vaccinated and running to the fucking hospital once you get the virus fucking deal, because this shit is out of fucking control, all right? And I'm gonna give you a quick story on why I think it's out of fucking control. Last week I had to bring my wife into the hospital. She has stage 4 breast cancer. She was dealing with some symptoms, and I had to bring her in to get some fluid drained. She was having some pain, blah, blah, blah. She was in there for 2 days. On the 3rd day, she honestly should have stayed one more day, maybe 2 more days, okay? But on the 3rd day, instead of draining her fluid and what they wanted to do, they told us that she had to be discharged because they had no room left in the hospital because of COVID. Here's my question. Why 99% of everybody that's in the hospital with COVID right now is unvaccinated, okay? If you really fucking believe that COVID's not real, and you really believe that it's not a big deal, and you really believe that you don't need to get the vaccine, that is your fucking right, okay? I'm not gonna argue with you about that. What I am gonna argue about is you running to the fucking hospital once you get the virus. If you don't trust the medical field to prevent you from getting it, why do you trust them to cure you from it? Why do you run to the fucking hospital? If you really believe that COVID's not a big deal and it's not this, that, the other, and you don't get the vaccine because stick to your fucking guns and keep your motherfucking ass at home. Stop running to the hospital, putting everybody else at fucking risk, and in turn, the collateral damages. People like my wife who actually need medical fucking help for a chronic fucking disease get kicked out of the hospital because your dumb ass is too stupid to go get a fucking vaccine shot. Keep your ass at home. If you really believe COVID's not a big deal, prove it. Stick to your fucking guns, keep your ass at home, and fucking deal with it.
Wow.
I mean, I personally think it is wrong for us to, wish ill on people who don't get a shot, and obviously, they need to go to the hospital. But you can understand why somebody who is caring for his wife, who's that sick, who gets kicked out of the hospital, would react that way. And there are probably thousands of stories like that. Thousands of stories like that of people who are not able to go to the hospital. They're kicked out of it. They're not able to get the care that they need because 30% of the waiting room is filled up with COVID people, as Marjorie Taylor Green would say, or more. And how many people over the course of this time too will not go in and get just sort of general care for things that could be more problematic than they know, because in these places where the hospitals are overrun. I mean, it has implications for the rest of society. There is no, I mean, if folks can't learn at this point that you cannot function as an island within a society, I don't know what to say. These people just need to be defeated. That's it. They need to be defeated. You put a mask you put a vaccine mandate, and that's it. Bottom line, because there are no islands here. It's going to impact other people. You cannot not get a vaccine as a population and not have it impact other people in this country and other countries for that matter. I mean, it's just
the personal choice talking point is the personal individual freedom talking point is one of the most disingenuous, because as you just laid out so well, this is the exact opposite of a personal private decision, personal private choice. This is a decision that affects everyone around you, including that man's wife, who is denied care and necessary medical attention for stage 4 breast cancer. And so, you know, I would pay a lot of money to show that video to Marjorie Taylor Green to see how that woman would react, because
and you know, like, not only does Marjorie Taylor Green have some responsibility, anybody who invites her on her show, I mean, I don't expect those ding-dongs over at OWN to do anything, you know, but anybody who even confronts somebody like that and doesn't bring up the fact that, like, yeah, no, this is not just an individual choice. You're making a choice for other people, particularly in these areas where it's exploding. You're making a choice for other people. You're basically saying you're limiting their opportunity to have access to healthcare. You're limiting their, you know, aside from just all of the material implications of not being able to come out of COVID properly and live our lives, it's going to kill other people who have, you know, tried to avoid the implications of this pandemic.
Yeah, I made the decision for me and my family that we're going to be disease vectors, and everyone else should just deal with it.
Exactly. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Ben Burgess. So, folks, this, I think, you know, regular listeners of the show know that I am on the verge of having a bunch of teenagers stay at my place for overnight as part of my daughter's birthday.
Oh boy!
And I can tell you that I am going to be taking a little bit more CBD than I normally do, ladies and gentlemen. And Sunset Lake's CBD is the only CBD that I will take. I know I say it funny, but that is the way that we got to do it on YouTube. Usually, Sunset Lake will give you this Left is Best 20% off, but there's a way you can get even more than 20% off. Their tinctures, their gummies, their fudge, their coffee, which I had this morning. They have all sorts of different brews at different times. But all infused with CBD. Their smokables, their salves, and their hand lotion. They have amazing products that have been grown pesticide-free, that are 100% organic, that are the integrity of what they contain is on their website. They get third-party testing, fully legit. They have great business practices. And now they have basically, I don't know that there's anything more they can do to sort of make it fully Sam Seder friendly. But as they have set up a situation where it can be automated. Sometimes it can be hard. Find the time to remember, like, you don't want to get to the end of your tincture bottle and go, ugh, I'm X number of days out from getting it replaced. Now you can easily get handcrafted CBD products from Sunset Lake CBD automatically delivered to your door every month. Well, not a 20% discount, but a 25% discount. Maybe it's not just for you because you like to automate everything like me. Maybe there's somebody you know who has a hard time ordering things online, but they enjoy Sunset Lake CBD products. Well, their new subscription service will make it simple for them to get affordable CBD delivered directly to their door every month. Head over to sunsetlakecbd.com right now. One-time order, Left is Best. It gets you 20% off. All one word, Left is Best. But if you want 25% off, get a subscription. Check it out, folks. You will not be disappointed. All right. Want to welcome to the program.
Products? Well, their new subscription service.
He's been listening to the show, apparently. Ben Burgess, columnist at the Jacobin, host of Give Them an Argument with Ben Burgess, and author of Canceling Comedians While the World Burns, a critique of the contemporary left. Ben, welcome to the program. I'm here with Emma Vigeland.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Emma.
Hey. And
I don't know
hello
why I
to
pronounced your name that way.
Yeah, I don't know. He got it wrong for some reason.
It's only been like 9 months that we've been doing this. 10
Yeah.
months. I'm still learning Emma's name. So Ben, lot to talk about in the news. One of the things that are on the front pages today is more reports of the Taliban essentially sweeping across Afghanistan. They have taken much of the South. The U.S. Marines are now evacuating people from Kabul. There's a report in the New York Times suggesting that the United States has basically implied to the Taliban, if not directly said, your aid, which implies that we will be giving them aid, is contingent upon not attacking our embassy,
right,
as you start to assault Kabul. It's going to be, it is going to be a disaster, both a humanitarian disaster, but also like a societal, civil, citizenry disaster for women, right? I mean, it's also going to be difficult for men, but for women in particular, it's going to create generations possibly of women who are not allowed to get education, not allowed to take any position in society. And yet we had no choice, at least now. But you reminded me of a piece that Ryan Grimm had written back in 2017, I think it was.
Yeah. So in this piece from 2017, Ryan was talking about things that had happened much earlier when the United States first invaded Afghanistan, and not that long after, like within a year or two of that, the Taliban had repeatedly tried to surrender, because that's what there had been a series of previous civil wars in Afghanistan, and this is kind of what you do if you have to live in the same country with people. You can't just be in a perpetual state of war, that eventually, if you see that you're beat, you try to lay down your arms and have some kind of negotiated process. You could be reintegrated into the power structure, maybe with much less power. And the Bush administration had no interest whatsoever in making that kind of deal. Said nothing but total annihilation would do, to the point where, once they kind of ran out of real Taliban fighters, people were sort of selling neighbors they had grudges against to the U.S. military by fingering them as Taliban. And after a while, this had gone on for a while, they took up arms again, said, okay, well, I guess just getting to have a negotiated surrender is not on the cards, and they restarted their war. And now, I mean, I certainly wouldn't advocate that the United States stay in Afghanistan any longer than it already has. It's obscene, that it's already, this has already been decades of war. But the fact that we're seeing the worst possible version of this is a result of that previous decision by the Bush administration.
Yeah, I mean, it is stunning, and it was it's reported at the time. We knew that the Taliban had made it clear, and the idea was the Taliban had given protection to Al Qaeda, but they were ready to hand them over, essentially, to the extent that there was any remaining in Afghanistan. Like you say, much of the Taliban scattered, went to Eastern Afghanistan, or in Western Pakistan. And there was an opportunity there. And the amazing thing is that while the Bush administration said we are for total annihilation, they had actually basically pulled out most of the resources. And I'm not suggesting that I was disappointed that they weren't for total annihilation, but they pulled out most of the resources to go to Iraq within a year and a half, less, of the invasion of Afghanistan. This could have been a police action from the beginning. It could have been essentially a policing action, when the Taliban said we surrender and we're just going to come with a negotiated agreement. And yet, I mean, let me ask you this. Do you think there's any chance that we as a society, or even the establishment, the foreign policy establishment, is going to learn anything from this?
I would be very, very surprised, unfortunately, if the foreign policy establishment learned anything from this, especially about like the fact that when you look at the way how quickly Afghanistan is collapsing right now, all these cities that have been retaken this quickly by the Taliban. I saw Bhaskar Sankara pointing this out, and you compare it to what happened when the Soviets started to leave Afghanistan. This is a way more rapid collapse. And why is that, right? Because the government that we've been propping up there has much less of a base of popular support. And all that's, but also like in 2001, 2002, lots of people there were not sorry to see the Taliban go, right? To put it mildly, that they were, like happy about the outcome, and if the United States had left, not that long afterwards, that then this might be a completely different story now. But because just even with those troops going to Iraq, I mean, it's been such a brutal war for so long. I mean, you've had literally decades of wedding parties being bombed and things like that in Afghanistan. We've managed to build up enough ill will to get, I would assume, lots of people who might have been happy to see the Taliban go now be eager enough to see the United States go, to at least acquiesce to the Taliban coming back, or in some cases actually support it.
Yeah, it's just an incredible disaster in about every possible way one could imagine. It's also not clear to me that, much of this wasn't inspired by, the Bush administration's perspective on Afghanistan, early on, pre the 9/11 attack. There was a strong desire by Dick Cheney to have pipelines through that country, and certainly, the Taliban anticipated, and Osama bin Laden anticipated our invasion of that country by September. Folks will remember that they assassinated the leader of the Northern Alliance in the weeks before the 9/11 attack. And the Northern Alliance was, basically an alliance of different ethnicities and regional and tribes that did not have that element of theocratic ambitions that the Taliban have, and so here we are.
Not to the same degree, certainly.
No.
And yeah, I mean, I think going along with what you're saying too. I mean, like the Ryan Grimm article is about the Taliban's attempts to negotiate a surrender after the United States had already invaded. But I mean, you could even talk about the immediate aftermath of September 11th. Where there were offers to negotiate, some sort of process to maybe hand over Osama bin Laden to a third country, or have some kind of negotiated process for they weren't willing to just hand over bin Laden and other Al Qaeda members with no preconditions to the United States immediately. But that didn't mean that there couldn't have been some kind of negotiated process. And I guess my question, like to anybody who thought that it was great that all those offers were spurned and the United States invaded, would be what's been gained with this? Like for 20 years of war in Afghanistan, and all of the death and carnage that's gone with that, and now the Taliban's coming back anyway. I mean, what was gained for either the United States or anybody else by fighting this war?
It was fuel to maintain the war on terrorism. I mean, if you resolve it with the Taliban, the narrative becomes like this is over, and there's no reason for us to be invading Iraq. There's no reason for us to be, use these use of authorization, military authorization all around these theaters. I mean, that's basically what it was. They were just concerned that this would, make the American public feel like we've wrapped this up. And they didn't. The irony is they did not want a sense of mission accomplished to be that limited. And so
and it's incredibly aggravating. I mean, before the ad break, you you were talking about, the possibility of having a vaccine mandate, and I mean, I think about that comparison all the time, because I'm old enough to remember, the immediate aftermath of 9/11, and a few thousand Americans dying was enough to be used to justify every single thing you're talking about. Multiple wars, invading and occupying multiple countries, drone war in about a dozen more countries, severe, civil liberties rollbacks in this country. And whereas like now with an actual like legitimate emergency, 600,000 people, dead of COVID, just having like the sort of very basic, trade-offs that we might, that like we might make to have a reasonable response to it, where there are real civil liberties concerns, but like that could actually justify doing things like a national vaccine mandate. Branko Marcetic has a great article about that in Jacobin about the case for that, or, test and trace like lots of other countries successfully did. The COVID apparently wasn't enough to justify that, which remembering what 9/11 was apparently enough to justify just kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, it is stunning. And one wonders how, I mean, just to turn it to COVID just for a moment.
Yeah.
Like what would be the scenario? What would Ebola do it? Like, I mean, if Ebola was spreading, I mean, it's fascinating to me because it really is just simply a function of who was president as far as the Republicans are concerned. Because I do remember the Ebola when there was a couple of people in this country who were thought to have Ebola. I remember the Republicans were trying to make Ebola this massive story.
They tried it during COVID when there were critiques of Trump's COVID response. There was, Obama with Ebola. It was like, this is not, Trump tried it. Trump tried it against Biden. That was one of his attempted attacks. I was like, this is really the worst you probably could come up with, because everyone's going to compare how Ebola didn't affect their lives at all and how COVID has completely.
Well, you don't remember the hundreds of thousands of Americans who died of Ebola,
right?
And that year that we all had to stay home because of
that lockdown. Yeah.
That is the question, right? When we talk about the civil liberties involved in a vaccine mandate, right? The question is, at what point does it become a legitimate state, for the state to compel this? Like, at what point does it rise to that level? And I just wonder, like, if we had 600,000 people die after blood dripping, out of their, their eye sockets, would that be enough for the vaccine? Or do you need like 1 million people to die? Like, what is the threshold before, where some of these folks will stop talking about it being an authoritarian measure? Like, and on the flip side, like, how is masks? Like, is it just like this exercise of control that supposedly the government is trying to force on us? The idea that they could force masks. I mean, we have schools in Florida now. One school just lost 4 teachers, and they are desperate to have masks. They're not allowed to have masks. Like, is that not authoritarian?
Okay. Yeah, right. And again, I mean, going back to the 9/11 comparison, we've all had 20 years of having to go through X-rays or be groped, if every time you get on an airplane, which seems like I mean, the comparative invasiveness of everything. We've like the mass electronic surveillance of phone calls. That I guess what I'm really struggling with, I mean, maybe it's a pretty basic point, is just like how it is that some of the same people who are all for every single one of these things, and certainly haven't been advocating even 20 years later, that we start to remove any of that, somehow think that having a mandate for one more vaccine. We've had mandates for different kinds of vaccines in different contexts for, literally centuries. I mean, you can go back to the Revolutionary War, George Washington, making the troops, get vaccinated. You can look at like vaccine mandates that exist in like every school every school district in the country for lots of other things, and and have for a long time. So adding one more onto the list of vaccines that the government can in various ways try to pressure you to get seems like a pretty mild invasion of civil liberties compared to all the rest of this.
Yeah, what struck me when we're talking about Afghanistan and like the wake of 9/11 and of course the Iraq wars and the untold death there, and how that the death totals were obscured and death was sanitized and war was sanitized. And Sam's asking, what would it take, right? Would it people have to be bleeding out of their eyeballs or vomiting out of every orifice or whatever? Like, part of it is because COVID is sanitized a little bit by our media, by just human nature, the desire not to grapple with what death entails, especially a violent death or one that involves a deadly novel disease. I think there's a through line there where people have this cognitive dissonance, and a lot of institutions are complicit in the sanitization of both of the results of these things. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think that the death rate is just low enough, like that that it makes it easy for people who want to be in denial about how the scale of the crisis to be in denial about it. I mean, I think something that was a little bit more dramatic, either in the way that Sam is talking about with the blood coming out of your eyes or something, or even just a little bit more dramatic in terms of the overall death rate, would be harder. It would be harder for people to say, especially, by the way, people I've seen advocating a vaccine mandate. I haven't seen anybody saying we should like go door to door with cops and doctors, although there, as Branko points out in that Jacket piece, there is some historical precedent for that too, right? But I haven't seen anybody advocate that, right? I mean, what I've seen is advocacy of replicating on a wider scale, like what's coming in New York, having, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't go to the movie theater, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which again, like it should be, I understand for the reasons that you're saying that it's not, but I mean, it should be like 600,000 deaths should certainly be enough to justify that.
I want to move on, but you had a tweet this week that actually really caught my eye that you just reminded me of, that we should be clear that this is coercive, that when the government says you can't go into restaurants or bars, unvaccinated, let's say, or whatever it is. You need to wear masks if you're not vaccinated, whatever. These are all coercive. And some folks took issue with that. I think that is a very, very helpful frame, because if your ability to engage in commerce is recognized as being coercion, that coercion does not need to be, I mean, you and I have talked quite a bit about the, libertarian debates. If coercion does not need to be holding a gun to your head,
right,
but rather a function of your opportunities to engage in commerce, to engage in our economy, to eat, let's say, to work, then surely people can understand that the need to work and someone withholding a job, let's say, or putting conditions on a job is also coercive. Like, I think we should be clear about this. The question isn't whether it's coercive. The question is whether there is a compelling reason for the state to be coercive in this point. And whether, does hunger, is that a legitimate method of coercion? I mean, I found that frame very helpful.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I mean, the point, to be clear, is that I think we agree that it's justified coercion in this case, but I think we should be honest about the fact that it is coercion. I don't like seeing progressives saying things like, well, you have a right not to get the shot, but then we have a right, to stop you from doing X, Y, and Z, if you don't. I mean, I think that that's a way of putting it I find really unhelpful, because a lot of it, especially when it's framed in terms of private sector decisions, like just businesses deciding that all of their employees have to get vaccinated, or all the customers for that matter have to get vaccinated, that like if you say, well, that's not coercion, you have a right to not get the shot. These other people have a right to deny you employment or service. Then you're denying that private sector coercion is a thing, which I think is a super reactionary position, because of course private sector coercion is a thing. If you say you can't work here, right, unless you meet conditions X, Y, and Z. That's absolutely coercive, and I think that's an important point for the left to insist on, because that's, as you said, it's what's wrong with libertarians, who say, oh, that's fine if we don't have minimum wage laws or workplace safety laws or anything. It's your choice, to go work there, and we should be very clear on what's
or civil rights laws, like
the
flip side of this is,
sure.
The flip side of this is I can exclude you from your this apartment because you're black, or because you're gay, or because you're a woman, or whatever it is. And we pass laws to inhibit people using their property in a coercive manner because people need a place to live. And people need to be comfortable with the idea that, yes, this is coercive. That's the point of it. We are coercing people into doing something. And the reason is because we have a compelling reason.
Yeah, exactly. In this case, there's a compelling justification for the coercion, which is why it's okay. But there is a trade-off here. We should be honest about the trade-off that that it is coercive, and that it's and there are civil liberties concerns you might have. I think in this case, the civil liberties concerns are outweighed by the rest of our concern with not getting COVID and having to go on ventilators. But there are that is a real consideration. And I guess just one more thing about this. I saw Emma talk about this earlier. The clip of Laura Ingraham and the guy from Bar Rescue.
Oh, we'll play that later. Yeah.
Talking about how we need to cut off unemployment, so people get back to work. That he said they only feed a military dog at night because a hungry dog, it's an obedient dog. Which what I like about that is that they're being extremely honest.
Yes, about how they view regular people. Like, yeah, well, we know.
It just shows the coercive nature of it. I mean, the hunger becomes the leverage, and yeah, I think we need to be, and the other reason why I think it's very important for people to recognize this is coercive. And so we must, as a society, make an analysis as to whether it's justified.
Exactly.
Right. And we do the same thing with taxes. And the reason why it's important for this exercise to take place is because, frankly, Donald Trump is president, or a different, Tom Cotton, and I don't trust him for, blankety blank this or blankety blank that. I mean, it's not like Donald Trump it's not like these Republicans are not capable of creating a completely alternate reality that I do not subscribe to. And I want that adjudicated and there to be a discussion. We need to agree that this is coercive and then allow for the argument as to why it's necessary. Because if we don't do that, if we just hand over and deny the fact that it's coercive, it is not hard to imagine having a president or a government that is run by people that we don't want them to have that ability to do this thing without it being interrogated in some fashion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you don't want to just say it's not a big deal to stop people from going to bars or restaurants or movie theaters or their job if they don't do something, because people don't have a right to do any of those things. That's a very big deal. It's a huge step to take to stop people from doing it. It might just be that a sufficiently compelling emergency justifies taking that big step, which I think is the case here.
Let's just turn briefly to what's happening with the infrastructure bill, the reconciliation. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that took place this week. It's really sort of shocking. And at some point it implicates, the IPCC report that came out earlier this week. Very dire, increasingly dire. It's been that way. We're on AR6 now. And I think I've been doing this while we've had probably, I think it comes out, every 4 years, is it? And, I've probably covered 3 or 4 of these at least at this point. And it just gets progressively worse. And this is a conservative report. because it is largely a political document. But so the infrastructure bill, the so-called bipartisan one, has not very much stuff to deal with climate, has some stuff that we need, and none of that spending is particularly bad in my estimation. The structure of it, I've seen some valid complaints about, it does nothing to tackle some of the monopolistic practices, and who we give the money to achieve these things makes a difference too, even if it gets done, because you're creating structures that may be problematic down the road. But let's talk about the politics of this.
Mm-hmm.
The infrastructure bill is passed. The reconciliation is passed in the Senate. Progressives in the House are saying, we will not vote on the infrastructure bill until we get the reconciliation, until we get which is really the budget bill, till we vote on the budget.
Mm-hmm.
The moderates now are threatening the opposite to Nancy Pelosi. There's a 3 to 5 vote margin in the House. Well, how does this play out? Well, I mean, how is this different even from, let's say, the COVID relief bill, where we didn't get the $15 minimum wage? Progressives theoretically could have used their leverage then too. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's not an example that inspires a lot of confidence, especially because the excuse, like the $15 minimum wage was going to be passed through reconciliation, and there was this bizarre charade with the Senate parliamentarian, giving a non-binding, opinion from the staffer, who could be fired and replaced. It's happened before, who could be overruled, by the vice president. That's happened plenty of times before. Going back to, you can look at all the times that,
they fired the parliamentarian during the Bush administration. Let's stipulate
that.
That was an excuse.
Yeah, I mean, it's an excuse. It's a very thin excuse. And it's one of the things that makes me very worried about the strategy of separating them. And I'll acknowledge it's gone further in the Senate than, I was worried that it might already. But that does give me an uneasy feeling that I've seen this movie before. And no matter who's promising at what point, that they vote against, the bipartisan bill, if we don't get the reconciliation bill, I get this uneasy tingling feeling, about man, that's like reminds me of all the people saying that they were going to vote against Obamacare if it didn't have a public option in it, or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I also just want to say really quickly, the climate change aspect is appalling, the at least the original, version, before it was neutered to make it bipartisan, had some money for clean energy tax credits, which is a pretty miserable half measure given the scale of the looming climate catastrophe, and even that's, gone from it. But also, I would push back just a little bit on the idea that there's nothing bad in it, and I'll even do self-criticism. I think in the past, I've accepted that premise a little bit too much. But there is some stuff that's being privatized, in it, selling off, certain public assets. There is stuff that's being created that creates federal jobs that are outside of normal civil service protections that unions have good reasons to be very concerned about. I'm not saying this is enough to make it more bad than good overall, but there is some bad stuff in there.
The privatization stuff has been, it's still there, but it's been minimized dramatically into the millions as opposed to the billions that are involved in this is $500 billion worth of new spending, almost $1 trillion plus of sort of finding it from other ways. But yes, point remains, no bill is going to be perfect. But largely speaking, it seems to me, a detrimental bill. I mean, what do you think about this concept? Is that the COVID relief bill, there was a lot more political pressure onto everyone to pass it through, and that the person or group that would stand in the way of that passing would have was in shape to pay a dramatic price, right? This was, progressives were on board with the $2,000 check. it was $1,400, but asterisk, a lot more money actually went out the door because the people who were eligible for that $1,400 was far greater than it had been in any previous relief bill. You had dependent children, et cetera, or adult dependents. But in this instance, I don't feel that there's going to be blowback if the progressives crash the bipartisan infrastructure bill. I think that's going to be, there's a lot more onus, it seems to me, on the so-called moderates and conservatives, because a lot of this stuff is really important for business.
Right.
We need roads, and this is all sort of like this, this is a lot of this stuff is like the no labels crowd sort of wish list. I mean, it's good for society writ large. And I would have liked, it's not like there's a tremendous amount of, an amazing amount of public.
It wouldn't be bipartisan if it wasn't Kid Chamber of Commerce friendly.
Exactly. But I don't think that there's not going to be a progressive outcry. I don't think there's going to be an outcry in the country, in terms of the electorate if this stuff didn't pass. Nobody seems to be even paying that much attention to it outside of us. I think the progressives have a lot more leverage in this situation than they did the COVID relief bill to crash the whole thing and walk away and just say, Biden, that's your legislative docket, not ours.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope that's exactly what happens. If it looks like not going to get the reconciliation bill, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, I have a hard time not feeling pessimistic about it. But I don't know. I'm an atheist, but your lips to whoever's ears.
Right. Let somebody hear that. All right. Well, we had a lot more to talk about, but we've run out of time, Ben. I really appreciate you coming on. We got to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Folks can check out, when can they find, Give Them an Argument?
The main show is Monday nights at 8:00 Eastern. And there's also, the schedule is changing a little bit at the beginning of September. We had been doing this on Sundays, but we're going to be doing debate breakdowns on Thursday nights. So we watch old debates on YouTube and with different guests and talk about them.
All right, fair enough. Ben Burgess, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Emma.
All right, quick break, then we'll be back to wrap up the week for our Peacock viewers. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have made it through at least the first half of our program on Friday the 13th. I feel like that's quite an accomplishment. But we were just saying at the break, there's just such a lot going on for August, and things are going to heat up. We have millions of people who are looking at the end of either their extended unemployment or their unemployment in total. And that is happening on Labor Day of all days. And we're only 3 or 4 weeks out from that. I don't think that there's going to be any addressing of that. And we haven't heard anything. It's sort of shocking, but
yeah,
we shall see as the days go on. For those of you who are watching us on Peacock, have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday. And for those of you who are watching us everywhere else in the world, hello, here we are.
Hello.
We never even left.
Wow.
Apparently, people were mad that I didn't ask Ben Burgess. This is according to Matt, who's been monitoring such things. People are mad that we didn't ask Ben Burgess where logic comes from.
Mm-hmm.
That is famously how Jesse Lee Peterson stumped Ben. Says, where does logic come from? I think the implication being it comes from God himself. So.
Oh, all right. There, I didn't know. There you go.
But we don't want to put Ben on the hot seat.
Checkmate. No, I didn't want to go right at him that way.
Friend of the show, you don't want to put him in
exactly.
that kind of position.
I mean, one would hope that he'd already come up with an answer.
No, he just has a kill switch that he makes look like internet problems whenever that question gets asked.
That he should rent that to Crowder.
Well, I think it's already being used by Lindell.
We will get to all that and more, folks. We're going to go into the fun half. We're going to do a short Friday show. We got a lot to talk about in the fun half today, and we're giving it all to the members.
You got somewhere to be?
No, I'm just saying, like, we did Freebie Fridays in the past, and we don't have a jokey joke guest. And
no, it's true. I just mean
I tried to get Tom Scharpling, and people may not know this, but the first Majority Report ever was on Tom Scharpling's Best Show on FMU. And Tom Scharpling, well, WFMU, I would imagine, Emma, you know about WFMU.
No.
I've been there. I've worked in the studios of WFMU.
I have also been to those studios, Matt. Well, I did not see you there. But WFMU is a famous...
Yeah, in Jersey.
Yeah, community station in Jersey.
I'm not a big radio person, so I just...
Ew. Okay.
Well, I mean, no, I didn't grow up listening to radio that much. I like it now.
Okay.
I was born in 1994, and
they had radios then.
Yeah, well,
fact,
I got into iTunes around age 8, so
not terribly familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom Scharpling started the Best Show on FMU. I think he started it in 99, maybe before then or not. And he'd have some of us do comedy bits on there. John Benjamin did a bunch of them. And I called him actually on the night of the election with the character that ultimately became the character in The Bad Situationist. Talked to him for 2 hours. It's a fun and prescient conversation and really disturbing. But so he had this show called The Best Show on FMU. And it's like a call-in show. It's not a political show at all. But we were talking, and we were so angry about what was happening with the war and the idea that there was no media that would argue the other side of it. He gave me 2 hours of The Best Show on FMU in February of 2003. We were about a month and a half out from the invasion of Iraq. And I did the first iteration of the Majority Report. Janine was a guest. John Benjamin and I went over to the studios over there. He did the opening live for the Majority Report. And I had some guy from the Fox and Friends weekend show come in, and he was not prepared for what I did to him. It wasn't a particularly good show, but I really sort of, at one point he said, "Look, I'm just the weekend guy," and that was it.
Where are they now?
Where's that guy?
Yeah,
Steve
I don't
Ducey.
even know. I don't remember his name.
Ryan Kilmeade.
No, it's not. But the point is, Scharpling has a memoir out, and he's got a full-time job as in a writing room. I'm not sure what show he's on now. And I texted him. I'm like, Scharpling. And he goes, "Who's this?" I'm like, "Dude, are you serious? It's Sam Seder." He's like, "Oh, I lost my phone and blah, blah, blah." And then I'm like, "So when are you coming on my show?" Then he ghosts me.
Oh, no.
He ghosts me. And then, 24 hours later, I'm like, "Dude, I'm not going to be upset if you don't want to come on. I just know you have a book, and I'm offering you to come on the show to promote the book." And then he showed up again. He's like, "Oh, no, I'm sorry. Just so busy." Yeah, he's not busy. He's It's not as busy as I am. But I told him, it's now I got to deal with this PR person. It's unbelievable what happens in Hollywood. But we'll have him on. So we have no guest today. That's a long way of saying, folks, your support makes this show possible.
Right.
You can become a member at jointhemajority.com. We need your support so that people like Tom Scharpling can't ghost me and feel comfortable with it. I want Tom Scharpling, when he ghosts me, when I text him, I want him like 3 or 4 hours later to just break down because he's concerned. He doesn't ghost Mark Maron. I can tell you that right now. Anyways, jointhemajority.com. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Also, don't forget, Nomi's show is on Wednesday and Friday. YouTube.com/The Nomiki Show. And Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian universe?
Yeah, no, sorry. I took a deep breath and then it made me cough. On Wednesday night, we had Derek Davison and Daniel Bessner on to talk about Afghanistan pullout, and we also talked about luxury markets just booming in the midst of the Biden inflation scare, and we talked a little bit about mansionomics, and also the corporate and liberal attacks on democracy against India Walton and Buffalo and Shama Sawant in Seattle. So that was Wednesday night, Left Reckoning. Go subscribe to the YouTube page, folks. I want to get to 15,000.
All right, folks. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
And the alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflakes says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. That's the fun half.
Hello.
Hello. Thames Darwin. Sam, I keep meaning to IM and ask your opinion about John Benjamin being hired as the voice of the blank void on John Oliver's Last Week Tonight. That's got a sting. Benjamin's on HBO and you're on, what's it called? Puffin Penguin? Something like that? Well, I've got to be honest with you. I was not aware of that. I don't follow, I don't catch John Oliver's show terribly regularly. And I certainly don't follow John Benjamin's, anemic career. That would involve too much effort to find all the disparate, tiny little gigs he has on these little channels called the HBO.
You would think it makes it easier just because they're so sparse.
I mean, one would, but it's like, I don't know. It's like if I tell you, find this, needle in an entire field of hay.
Mm.
It's just like, forget it. Can't. So I don't follow what John Benjamin does. Sam, Joe's in Kansas City. Considering you're a VCR repair expert, can you help me out? Is there a brand model VCR you'd recommend to someone who is digitizing old family footage? Left is best. No, it's not going to make a difference, to be honest with you, unless they're S-Video. S-Video was a slightly different format that had a better quality, but I would get on it quick. I don't know if you've been, what happens with old VCR tape is that if you leave it stored somewhere, particularly if it's hot, it will melt and stick together. And I've had to actually open up a tape cassette, unspool it, then respool it and tape with Scotch tape the stuff together. So
it's amazing to me how kids born in this time are just going to have the most footage of them as children ever possible.
That is,
it's like a big deal when, I can find some sort of VCR at the bottom of my mom's filing cabinet. And then it's like, or a tape that has a baby video of me on it.
That you're absolutely right. I mean, I remember when Mila was a child, I was like, she's the first, and she was the first generation because we all had digital cameras at that point. We didn't have it. It wasn't in our phones. But she was the first generation where her entire life, this is the weird part, very early on, she would want to see the video. She would know that we were taking pictures and want to see it. And we would show it to her. And so much, I think, of these kids' memories are in the third person.
Right. Because
they're witnessing themselves outside of themselves. And it's going to be fascinating. And I was telling Saul this morning, I was like, I have 10,000 pictures probably of your sister before she was your age.
Yeah.
Every moment, it's like the Truman Show, except for we're just following her around, taking pictures.
And also, I would imagine it becomes more of a second nature to her. I think when my mom would bring out the video camera or whatever, it was an event. So I'd talk about all the movies I was watching or do a song or something like that, right? Because it was a big deal to be filmed. Now it's just on your phone. Who cares?
Exactly. Emma.
Yes.
I think you're aware of the damage that fossil fuels do to the world, right? We have record heat across the country at this point. We have extreme weather events. We have...
I would add mass extinctions.
We have mass extinctions. Mass extinctions.
This is the first time hearing about this.
Asthma. We have all sorts of health impacts. We have mass extinctions in the ocean. I mentioned the other day, I can't remember the acronym for it, but it is essentially, there is a water flow. Water goes, people know that there are currents, but the water also goes from shallow to deep because of a cycle that exists with the temperature of the water and the amount of salination in the water. And it turns up the ocean in a way that almost like if you till your garden, it brings nutrients up and feeds all sorts of different species. we're on the cusp of multiple mass extinction events. We've had many, many species extinct. But did you know that Republicans are very, very concerned about, well, not mass extinction and not necessarily extinction and not necessarily all species, but they're really worried about the birds, not the spotted owls. We all remember how that was ridiculous. But
Yeah.
they're worried about the birds. Here is Louie Gohmert on with Newsmax's Natalie Harp.
But some of the crazy things in it. Let's plant flowers on the side of the road. Let's study impact collisions between animals and humans on the road. What about the windmills? The windmills kill so many birds, and yet they're taking us toward the Green New Deal.
Yeah, well, and another part of that Green Deal is the huge solar farm that they have out on the border of California and Nevada, thousands of acres of concave mirrors that magnify the sun toward 3 towers, heat up the liquid in there and turn turbines. But they weren't anticipating that there would be hundreds and thousands of what they would call flamers, because when the birds fly through, if they survive the windmills, then they hit.
Pause it real quick. Like what? Not hundreds of thousands of birds. Like one example was 6,000. So he's upgrading the number a little
Well,
bit.
you know, there are also birds that fly into skyscrapers and die on a regular basis. So I would imagine Louie Gohmert is outraged by the existence of the Empire State Building. Well, it is in liberal New York, but obviously that must be something that gets him very upset.
But does anybody believe that Louie Gohmert gives an F about these birds?
Or
I
or the process, or the aggressive process by which he's characterizing it as just so cumbersome and unnatural to have this energy system, right? These solar
This
farms.
sounds like a something out of the Jetsons, with you've got like sun rays being deflected in multiple different directions and birds can't fly through. It's like creates a field force of heat, and they could come flamers and. My God, we're hurting the little birds.
Yeah,
There's the only thing that's more violent than what he's describing and more offensive is the aggressive extraction of fossil fuels from the ground that potentially causes earthquakes. And like, if he wants to describe the scary fossil fuel extraction that we do on a regular systemic basis throughout the world, it's a lot more scarier than what he's talking about there.
You cul-de-sac, you don't know anything. I cried when I saw those birds in the Gulf covered in oil. I cried. You don't know what you're talking about. They're streamers, flamers.
Yeah, that is the right. They're streamers, not flamers.
Streamer flamers. I call them both. They're flamers. They call them streamers, but they're flamers.
Don't you get it? The
it
way
on.
when a bird's coated in oil, that's a natural way to go.
That is. I wish I could die that way.
Me too. But not by a solar panel.
Put it up there, Bradley.
When the birds fly through, if they survive the windmills, then they hit that magnified sun, explode in flame, and down they go, bird guts all over the mirrors. So that takes some cleaning up. This is the green stuff that's just out of control and is going to bring the nation down.
Wait. How did we go from, we got flowers by the side of the road. We got, what was the other thing that she mentioned?
Wind turbines.
And then some birds in this one area that are exploding and guts getting on the mirrors, and you got to clean up the mirrors. And that's going to take the nation down?
Yeah, probably.
There's like a big jump. There's a big leap from birds bursting into flames, and then the nation disappears.
Well, it's like the Jordan Peterson argument, Sam, right? If you make your bed every day, you can change the the world. And if you don't make your bed every day, then obviously the world is going to collapse into things that are quite scary. And it all starts with some bird guts and then World War III.
People like animals, and that's why this has been a long time fossil fuel gambit. Most, I guess we know it from the solar or from the wind turbines, but just from the fossil fuel perspective, this is from cleanenergy.org. Coal mining creates a great threat to bird populations due to major habitat loss. According to the American Bird Conservancy, there were more than 1,200 mines found in Appalachian region, and 380,000 acres of forest habitat were destroyed. And then this moved on to oil field production is another threat to birds. According to Fish and Wildlife Service, every year an estimated 500,000 to 1 million birds are killed in oil field production, skim pits, reserve pits, and oil field wastewater disposal facilities. We could go on.
Yeah, but okay. The birds just move away. This, they blow up and the guts go all over the mirrors.
Look, they do start on fire, and I imagine this is something we'll need to monitor, that maybe this sort of molten solar isn't the best in heavily bird habitat scenarios. I imagine we'll probably put it more in deserts, but this is sort of, I guess, trial and error.
You don't care about the birds. I do. Country's going to go away. Anybody want to take a guess what the symbol of America is?
I was about to say, it's just a matter of time before a bald eagle flies through one of those solar panels, spontaneously combusts, and that Green Deal, they want that bald eagle bird guts in their belly. They don't care about our symbols. Got a little more Louisiana at the end.
A bald eagle flamer.
Bug a wolf. I am Sam. I want to apologize for my Ligma variant joke earlier in the week. I'm a big fan of the show and appreciate the work you do. On a more serious note, the Delta variant is ravaging the little-known city of Gargalon. Thoughts and prayers. Have a nice weekend. I don't know really what that means, but I know it is a joke.
Gargle on my...
Yeah.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you. All right, there you go.
It's a blue week.
Yep. Who's this dude? I've never seen the show Bar Rescue.
It's a great show.
Is it really?
I enjoy it. I think it's basically this guy walks in, John Taffer, and a lot of it is what I enjoy is when he gets on management that is just there because they're a friend of the owner and they're absolutely incompetent, and there's actually more competent staff. But I guess John Taffer's politics aren't that dynamic that I like from the show.
Well, okay, so he goes in and screams at workers a majority of the time.
Shut it down!
Sort of like that.
Yeah, it's think Gordon Ramsay vibes, but apply it to bars, and then he renovates the bars. And I could never have foreseen that his politics were bad. Just kidding. It's he's the most stereotypical, clear conservative I can think of, but he's loud and he's on TV.
And here he is with Laura Ingraham, basically talking about the way that he perceives people who work in this country.
I'm not an economic professor. If you get $800 a week unemployment benefits, and you live with a partner who also is getting $800 a week unemployment benefits, $1,600 a week, Laura, $83,000 a year for that household in unemployment benefits. The median income in America is only $63,000.
Pause it
We're
for 1 second.
incentivizing people to.
I mean, let's just you really got to hand it to two people who are sitting there and their mouths are agape at the idea that a household of two people working full time could make $87,000. Imagine, Laura. Imagine that. How long do you think it takes? This is $87,000 a year. How long for two people living together? I wonder how long it takes for those two people sitting there to accumulate $87,000.
John Taffer makes a lot of money on his show, I would imagine. Bar Rescue.
I mean, I can't do the math, but I wouldn't be shocked if those two made $87,000 in the course of
day.
a couple of weeks.
I'm trying to find his contract, but I don't think it's public.
One metric is John Taffer took $60,000 worth of PPP loans. So
that could almost be enough in their estimation.
And that's not for two people. That's for one guy.
Yeah, right. For a couple.
What is he taking a PPP loan for?
He's got an LLC that I assume does sort of bar stuff. He runs his own bars, I think, too. Or his bar sort of supply stuff, which are often pimped on the show.
Why? I'm just curious. Okay, well, that's good. All right, so let's play this. So let's see.
Yeah, it gets the worst part is the end.
Income in America is only $63,000. We're incentivizing people to stay home. What if we gave that additional unemployment benefits to employers to incentivize people to go to work?
Well, what if we just cut off the unemployment? I mean, hunger is a pretty powerful thing. I don't mean physical hunger, because people who truly are in need help. I'm talking about people who can work but refuse to work. But the government is literally putting anvils in many ways on people's shoulders, either through the mandates, regulations, and now through free money, which obviously we're all the piper eventually has to be paid. John, I want to ask you, though, about this idea of work-life balance, because look, no one wants to miss their kids growing up. No one wants to. You stay in the office your whole life. You never see your family. So that's really important. However, have we taken that a step too far when you think of, well, a lot of the millennials talking about, well, I need time for self-care. I don't know why I'm harping on that tonight, but the whole self-care movement is a little, I mean, my mother's not with us anymore, but she worked by the time she was 12 during the Depression. If she heard the self-care thing, I think her head would explode.
I think that's right. I have a friend in the military who trains military dogs, Laura, and they only feed a military dog at night because a hungry dog is an obedient dog. Well, if we're not causing people to be hungry to work, then we're providing them with all the meals they need sitting at home. I'm completely with you, Laura. These benefits make absolutely no sense to us. And on top of the impact of not getting employees and not being able to run our businesses, in my industry, we have meat prices are up 10%, chicken prices are up 15%.
Inflation is killing the.
Yeah, so I love how they're pretending that it's not about actual hunger because they know how that sounds. But what is the consequence of cutting off unemployment benefits for people who they've arbitrarily decided? I don't know how you make the decision about who cannot work and who can work, right? But you cut off those benefits, that's going to result in literal hunger, which they know, but they pretend, oh, it's just hungry to work. As I make an analogy about starving a dog, by the way, shows great morals during the day, and then liken that to a worker.
How many moments before this segment, too, I wonder, was Laura Ingraham talking about the authoritarian nature of requiring masks? But the idea that her guest is talking about disciplining workers like you discipline a dog. Like literally you want them to be more obedient, so you do not feed them. You don't feed them. You don't provide stuff for them because you want them to be obedient. How is that not authoritarian?
How is starvation not coercive? How is targeted starvation to dangle food, basically, over somebody's head unless you participate in a workplace that is not necessarily safe due to a deadly pandemic? You can either risk your health or you can risk starving. And then they say this is actually freedom and the part of the free marketplace, and chuckle as they say it, both millionaires many times over.
And here's
at least they said what they felt. It's helpful and instructive, at least, to have that kind of sociopathy on national television and played out like that. Thank you.
They said what they need. These sorts of businesses don't work without the fundamental coercion of laborers. And this has always been the case in capitalism. I want to go back to the 17th or 18th century. I think John Taffer is sort of our modern Enlightenment figure, and Laura Ingraham. Here's Reverend Joseph Townsend, sort of prefigured Malthus, who people are familiar with. He says, Hunger will tame the fiercest animals. It will teach decency and civility, obedience and subjection to the most perverse. In general, it is only hunger which can spur and goad the poor on to labor. Yet our laws have said they should never hunger. The laws, it must be convinced, have likewise said they shall be compelled to work. But then legal constraint is attended with much trouble, violence, and noise, creates ill will, and never can be productive of good and acceptable service. Whereas hunger is not only peaceable, silent, unremitting pressure, but is the most natural motive to industry and labor. It calls forth the most powerful exertions, and when satisfied by the free bounty of another, lay lasting and sure foundation of goodwill and gratitude. The slave must be compelled to work, but the free man should be left to his own judgment.
There it is. It's nice of them really to lay it out that way.
I mean, it's the through line. That's like the line we're afraid to cross more than the national debt, I think. It's like we don't want to give people too much work that they're not feeling anxious to go back out and work for a local capitalist to try to feed themselves and put a shelter over their head.
And Sam, did you catch what she said about her mom working at 12 years old?
I didn't, but I mean, I'm like, what does Laura Ingraham feel
I don't give a shit. Thank you, Laura Ingraham.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, does she feel bad about herself not working at 12? I mean, it's absurd.
Right. Well, good point. Maybe that's child labor laws are. That's basically, that's coercive, right? Because all these kids, they want to work.
That's really impressive. That guy should be very proud of himself to compare the workers to a dog, so that they be more. That's wow.
Yeah, and in any sane society, his show would get canceled for that kind of comment. But
Oh, I mean, bar owners are gonna love him for that.
Let's look at some IMs. Let's turn on the phones too. I think I'll do that today. Special Friday. Usually we don't have any time. Oh, here we go. I think that's it. All right. Go. First IM of the day. Sam is this is the first one that came in, I think. Sam is a fuck knuckle. Sam, you vituperative prick. Sweet baby Jesus, do you fucking suck? I imagine when you put your kid to sleep every night, he just looks at you and says, Dad, why are you such an unmitigated failure of a human being? This morning, actually, he said, you're the most boring person alive.
Really?
Yeah, something like that.
Why?
I don't remember. I don't remember the context. I think it was just basically the way he was trying to wake up. Anyway, I love the show, and as a parent myself, I'm curious about your choice to refer to your kids by name on the show. I kind of think if I was in your position, I wouldn't do that. I don't like to post photos of my kids online, for instance, because that's not a decision I feel like I have a right to make for her. Curious about your thoughts about the privacy of kids these days. I certainly never post pictures of my children online. Ever, ever, ever. Never have. There was no way that I just didn't have control over certainly my first child's name and the second. I mean, it's just not.
Like you're just you're going to say it basically.
I know I was going to say it, but Janine had said my child's name before, and in retrospect, maybe I could say child number 1 or 2 or something like that, but. I'm not clear on what that would be problematic in terms of like security for them, but I don't think anybody can find a picture of any of my kids where they don't just look like a generic baby. Anyways, maybe some people can at this point.
I've thought about that too. When I eventually have kids, there's no way I'm gonna post photos, but it might be hard not to say their names. It's like hard enough not to say my loved ones or like my boyfriend's name, which I don't do either. So
yeah, I mean, I guess if I had started out, it would have been like number 1 or number 2. But if you only have one, you don't know that it's number 1.
And what if you have? But you have 2 of different genders. You could say my son or my daughter, but I don't know. That is tricky, though.
Ryan Cole. People are giving you a hard time over your hair, but I think it looks good. Thank you. Honestly, we need to call these Trump vaccines, claim that they are the result of his genius and leadership, so that the dumbest third of the nation who worship him will be getting vaccinated as a sacrament to their God Emperor. I don't think it's just politics. I think it's also just a tremendous amount of misinformation.
I think
honestly,
that we need more carrots. Like I saw the thing where they're letting people drive around Talladega Motor Speedway if they got the vaccine, and I think stuff you need to access FOMO in a way that's as least coercive as you can, and do stuff like that. I think because that's what people are waiting on. Like people don't want to like be out of commission for 36 hours with a fever unless it's like going to stop them from going to a music festival or something like that. I think.
Yep, I think that's a good point. Swing for the Pences. Sam, we can see your 40 of malt liquor in the shot. No, this is my Liquid IV. There's a freebie for Liquid IV right there. Squirting for Crowder. Lindell comes off like Rachel Maddow did with the Trump tax returns. Major difference, though, is the tax returns might see the light of day soon. Guitar Scar, what that zoning caller from the other day is the new Greg. Yet another reason to miss Michael. Have a good weekend, all.
The new Greg?
Yeah, the Greg. Matt, do you want to tell Emma who Greg was?
Greg was the guy who tried to draw very sort of forced analogies to sort of justify Israeli occupation of Palestine. And Michael loved him.
Jetpacks jetpacks came up. Let's put it that way.
Got it.
I'm
having some Liquid IV right now.
It's hard to get into as a caller now, but back in the day, there was basically Doug and Greg every single day.
Calling from a 503 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, is this me?
Yes, it is you.
Oh, awesome. Wow. Long time, first time. This is Drew from Portland, Oregon.
Drew from Portland, Oregon. What's happening?
Well, my partner works at the county health department, and things are not looking great in these next to the woods.
I was just reading
Oregon
Oregon has record hospitalizations.
Record hospitalizations, yes, and the word is that 80% of the coronaviruses that are coming in have been sequenced as Delta variant. Not only...
Go ahead, sorry.
So not only record cases, but like the vast majority of them are Delta variant, as well as we're seeing an increase of breakthrough infections from people who are already vaccinated.
And are those people hospitalized?
So they are hospitalized, and there is a they're saying at the county level that they are going to be 500 beds short by the end of the month. It is sort of hypothesized if things go this way, and we're actually considering going back to virtual schooling, comprehensive distance learning, because the rates of infection for children have actually gone up as well.
The breakthrough infections, though, are those being hospitalized?
The breakthrough infections, not. They're being hospitalized, but the recovery rate is pretty high.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm a school teacher. I'm a special education teacher, so I'm worried about going back to CDL again and facing the ridiculous amounts of disparity between students learning at home rather than in person and not receiving sort of that roof over their head and guaranteed meals and stuff like that. But also there's been such a focus on kind of this divide between in the nation between sort of the liberal and conservative wings, and how we need to sort of overcome this divide in our nation. And I'm feeling increasingly I'm feeling like that is difficult to really get over that hurdle when their decisions to not get vaccinated have directly led to the mutation of the coronavirus and spread of the coronavirus between non-vaccinated people now to vaccinated people with the breakthrough cases, and are not only taking us backwards in terms of lockdowns and whatnot, but also resulting directly in people's deaths. I feel like it's driving me even more to be resentful of, people who adhere to these ideologies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, understandable. I'm not encouraging that, but I mean, it's also like, yeah, it's hard not to resent people who are just making a choice that is supposedly just about them, that is causing, death of people around you, or causing you increased anxiety to go into work. Yeah. I mean, understood. Appreciate the call. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I wish I could say appreciate the call. I wish I could say I mean, on an intellectual level, it's wrong. But it's, we need to, we need to do the best that we can to get as many of them vaccinated as possible, and worry about the resent, maybe later at a different time, or hope that that it doesn't. I mean, the important thing is to get people vaccinated, but it's very hard to sit here and argue like, no, you shouldn't feel resentful. So, I mean, how could people not? Calling from a 443 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Josh. It's Joshua from Dundalk, Maryland.
Joshua from Dundalk, Maryland, which turns out to be the most diverse state in the country. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
According to the new census. Congratulations, Marylanders.
Thank you. Yes, I wanted to call about, because right now I'm a custodian in the Baltimore County area, and where all teachers I have talked to are worried about the parents upset about the mask mandates.
Yeah.
And there was obviously on the 10th there was a huge protest at the Towson building, where there was parents don't mask our children and all of this. And for me, I've been wearing a mask since I'm a custodian. I've been wearing a mask since March, been vaccinated since March. I have been encountered with some parents that were, of course, against it, and I don't understand why. When they're like, oh well, my kids, but it's a deflection to themselves. To me, I think.
Yes.
It's I know Emma said that before.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just like, I'm not a parent, but I think a good sign of good parenting is not projecting your own issues and insecurities onto your children, and that's
absolutely
basically
like it's a you problem, not a we problem. It's a you
that's
problem.
not possible.
But I know it's not possible, but attempting to at least try to not do that, right? I guess. Well, okay, but that's what this is.
The kids,
right.
I in my experience, the kids, the people who have the least bit of trouble wearing masks are kids.
That's my point, though, is that this is about them.
They do. Yeah,
they're making it about their kids at these when they're getting so enraged. Protect our kids, yet we won't get vaccinated, so they don't get the Delta variant, and it could be hurting kids more. Early data shows that that's possible. But like we're all
and then-
about protecting the
sorry.
kids. Yeah, no, that's all.
Yeah, and then Florida, it's just like they're just defunding schools, which absolutely hurts everyone. And if they ever happens in other states, and like that means that other states will be like, oh, well, if you we don't want masks in our schools, so we're just going to cut your funding. I'm like, okay, that's some petty stuff.
Yeah, that's nuts. Appreciate the call.
Thank you so much.
Calling from a 717 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yes.
Hi. Actually, my name is also Josh, just one state north in Pennsylvania.
Jeez. All right. What do you got?
Lots of
Other
Joshes.
Josh.
Sorry.
You should apologize. You should.
Yeah, sorry. So I was wondering if you had any plans on possibly interviewing any sort of fiction writers, like novelists or short story writers, in the future, because, it's one thing to interview journalists and that's really important. But I've found that writers often have a really individual aspect on political climate and political situations that really can't be expressed through journalism or through nonfiction. And I was just wondering if you had any plans or any aspirations to feature fiction writers.
I have no plans to per se, and it's not like an agenda of mine to keep fiction writers off. But it rarely occurs to me to do so. In part, it's not inconceivable to me that someday, the distant future, this show becomes like a 2-day-a-week show, and where it's not following the news in that way, and it's more like a broader take on the moment. I could see that for a Friday guest too, maybe. You know what I mean? A fiction writer, but it's much harder for me to sort of to wrap my head around, and I don't have the opportunity to read fiction more or less at all these days.
No, that's understandable.
But we had
like
Cory
Ben
Doctorow
Burgess
on.
Corey,
We had Cory Doctorow
yeah,
on.
I was just about to say Cory Doctorow.
We
And,
had him on. We had him on.
Whether or not, yeah, good.
And we
whether or
had
not
Anderson
you
on.
like
Kurt
him-
Anderson on at one point too, I think.
Okay. Whether or not you like him, he has quite a lot to say about birds. Jonathan Franzen is often a pretty interesting voice
Yeah.
to hear.
Yep. I'm open
yeah,
to it.
Go ahead.
I'm open to it, broadly speaking, if it comes up. Send us some pitches.
Okay, will do.
All right. Appreciate the call.
All right, thanks.
Would have been cool while she was still alive to have Toni Morrison on.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Emma, take over for a minute. I gotta run. I'll be
All
right
right,
back.
don't mute yourself because maybe I'll take a call.
Okay, I will not mute myself. All right.
I'll stop your video and have you restart it when you come back, Sam.
Okay.
Behind the scenes, you're seeing the way we do things around here. All right. I'm going to read some IMs, maybe take a call. Aaron is not cool. On a more serious note, I want to agree with main caller. This CRT and gender conversation, these children are still learning how the world works. I have friends who teach in NYC and they have no trouble teaching children pronouns and gender identity. The parents don't want to understand and use their kids as an excuse themselves from embracing their ignorance. I couldn't agree more.
That's always been the problem with American education. It's a line against what you want to teach versus what the parents want their kids to teach.
Right. Fierce Deity 73, Taffer also used to advise bar owners on how to avoid giving health insurance to their employees under the ACA, so this is nothing new for him. Oh, what a gem of a person.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, I was holding out hope for Taffer just because I enjoy the show.
The show's fun, yeah.
So much, but I do think, like, there's every once in a while you can kind of tell. Like, there was a Marshawn Lynch episode about that I believe Marshawn was motivated in part out of some police abuse issues, and the way that they kind of skirted around it a little bit made me think that there was some kind of friction with Taffer's own politics there that I think we can basically confirm at this point.
Right.
And unfortunately, like he's a professional boss, and that's also what he plays on TV. So like he's mostly just like yelling at low wage workers and like people who've really financially mismanaged their money. So it's kind of like the optics of it to begin with.
The funny thing about the show is like it's not just him yelling at workers. Often the problems are like the workers are fine, they're just undertrained because the owners and management are just completely inept, which is I think it's actually an amazing show for illustrating certain problems of capitalism.
Yeah, which clearly was not his intent, but
yeah, you can't help it.
Yeah, I stumbled into it. Warren from Toronto. I was born in 95 and all I listen to is radio. I wake up to radio, go to sleep to radio. I would skip school lectures to listen to WFMU radio. Some people take their dates to movies. I take them to a radio. No talking, just listening to the radio. I would rather get to know the airwaves than the person I'm talking to because radio is so amazing and not for boomers, says Warren. I should have waited for that. I am. Maybe Sam will see it later on. Emma's pirate impressions. Just look up the number of birds killed by domestic cats. I don't know if I feel like doing that. Wyoming Ryan. Wyoming loves its coal and people out here argue about birds all the time. I always respond with this data. Each year coal-fired power plants dispose of nearly 100 million tons of toxic fly ash, bottom ash, and scubber sludge in more than 200 landfills and wet ponds across the United States, according to the EIP Earth Justice Data Analysis of EPA data. Yeah, they're just like they have no interest in birds. I think
free range domestic cats kill 1.3 to 4.0 billion birds and 6.3 to 22.3 billion mammals annually.
How is that calculated?
So this is unowned cats as opposed to owned pets cause the majority of the mortality. Our findings, I'm not sure how this is nature.com. So
yeah, well, I mean, if you want to make an anti-cat argument, we probably should have Sam
I'm pro
here
cat,
for that.
but I do think they can kill a bird.
Did I hear anti-cat argument?
I think you did.
Well, they just kill a whole bunch more birds than, for instance, solar panels. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Who would have thought? That's well, we've got to get rid of this.
Sam, I want to read you this IM that I already read, but I think you might enjoy it because it's on your side. Warren from Toronto says, I was born in 95 and all I listen to is radio. See? It's not
There you
just
go.
me. I wake
Good.
up to radio, go to sleep to radio. I would skip school lectures to listen to WFMU radio. Some people take their dates to movies. I take them to a radio. No talking, just listening to the radio. Would rather get to know the airwaves than the person that I'm talking to because radio is so amazing and not for boomers. See, someone agrees with you.
The thing you said about staying home to listen to radio is something that I did all the time in high school. I skipped so much school to the point where I used to every semester or quarter get a letter saying, hey, if you miss X amount of more days, you'll have to retake this semester. Because I love to just listen to sports talk radio / liberal anti-war radio out of Minneapolis. And I honestly think I'm smarter for it.
Sports talk radio, I do like sometimes listen to when I'm with like certain people because they like it, and it gives you a good understanding of just where the baseline of New Yorkers are thinking about, honestly, the world, but mostly sports. So,
should we take another phone call? Calling from a 941 area code. Who's this? Where you call from?
Holy shit, is this me?
I think so.
All right. Hey, Sam, Emma, Matt, and everybody else. I really appreciate your show. It's really helped me, educating me, helping me with different perspectives. The reason that I'm calling today is
Whoa.
honestly to talk about.
What is your name and where are you calling from?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Thomas. I'm calling from Florida, Bradenton.
Okay, you calling from Florida? Okay.
Yep. I'm a little excited, so I do apologize if I rant or get a little nervous. But I wanted to talk about Florida, specifically the cannabis industry.
Okay.
And True Leaf is the number one cannabis company, or at least they'll declare themselves the number one cannabis company in the world. And I don't know if people really realize how legal cannabis is going in other states compared to their own. But in my instance, I've had the specific, dealings with True Leaf where I've seen them sort of act like a gang, where they're legal, but they sort of treat it mostly for profit, and they don't really care too much to communicate what their goals are or that they're going to try and supply more products for their patients. One of the things that they tout is that they are number one, but they continually open up new stores and they continually have shortages at their other stores. And what they'll do is they'll provide products for the major cities, and they'll have Kim Rivers, the CEO, go on national TV and tout how good her company is and how great they are doing for the movement. But one thing that really stands out is something even like their website. They make so much money, so much profit, but they can't even help out and make a website that shows accurate inventory on a consistent basis. And they can't provide that inventory on a consistent basis to the stores that they already provide.
So wait. So let me just be clear. Like this is the medical marijuana dispensaries just not doing a good job.
Yes, I would say that for sure.
Basically,
I mean,
for
is that
example, I
the-
actually worked at.
Wait, but I just want to be clear on what the issue is. I mean, it's just like, I mean, I think, part of it is that because my sense is that part of it is because we have such a sort of like a tepid entrance into this market. I don't know about it, if it changes state to state. And part of it also probably, because of federal inhibitions, that there's just not the amount of regulation that should be going on with some of this. I don't know.
It looks like
I would say that they don't really fight for the legalization as much as they fight for their profits. For example, if
Well,
they
of
really cared
course.
about their patients, they would provide more for their patients instead of for their profits, like the inventory issue, the website issue. These are things that if they don't fix it immediately, or if they don't fix it over time after hearing it consistently that it's a problem and that it needs to be fixed, then it starts to show like a point from A to B of what their goals are. Open stores, get profits. But I feel like we're sort of missing out on this opportunity to push for legalization when it comes specifically to the employees and the communication through their stores that, hey, this is something that works. We legalized it because it works, but we need to push and we need to do more. This is what you can do. Like I was an employee in one of these dispensaries, and we didn't really push for information sharing. We only pushed the products out. And that was their only goal, to have low wait times in the dispensary.
Yeah,
of course,
I
yes,
mean-
of course, but we're not. But I don't think there's enough outrage or enough people's voices going out into the world and saying this is wrong. And it's not only wrong now, but it's been wrong for the past 50 years.
Yeah,
Like I don't know if I hear it enough on your show because I don't maybe listen enough. But I was hoping that we could maybe start to push this often, if we could, as often as possible.
The problem isn't that, like, this is a monopoly. This is a medical marijuana monopoly in Florida that is absolutely not incentivized to like do broader legalization. They want this, like Sam said, we're doing this tepidly and in a controlled way that allows for major corporate players to control how it is outrolled. So that's the problem here, and we need to basically force we need to attack monopolies in cannabis is basically the issue.
I guess I understand that. I think one of the issues that I see is that there's a lack of communication or willingness for people to speak out against it and to do something about it. For example, the federalized legalization of cannabis would be great. Then people could be educated, grow their own, and provide for their own needs. But we don't really have that. And I'm not trying to specifically target Florida in this argument. I'm trying to say as a broader, even for the world, to say, hey, end the war on drugs, but at least start educating people and talking about it and pushing for the action that we need.
All right. Well, I appreciate the call. We got some problem with the app right now, but I appreciate the call. And I mean, I understand what you're talking about. I think like it needs to get into some type of regulatory framework where there is, not this sort of like a weird monopoly.
Yeah, I think we're like these things. This is a problem in every state that's doing legalization. They're called multi-state operators. Brian Box Brown on Twitter has been following these issues really closely, and this is how they do it. They give it to preferred partners that monopolize and have terrible service.
All right, let's here we go. Let's do some IMs. Just had a problem with the app. We apologize for that, folks. Just getting some IMs to that effect. Yeah, we're looking into the app issue. Glenn Seder. Hey, Sam, I've been really enjoying Sunset Lake Sebadet. I've also started using the line of Sebadet products. And they've been working tremendously. You should check it out. I think Matt Leck also partakes. Okay, and it's Sebadet. I see. I'm not sure I follow. Panda, I'm running for school board and was invited to speak with a local Libertarian Party. I'm going to go, but was curious if you had any suggestions. Good luck. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what the agenda is. Reach around for freedom. What's up, MR crew? Here in Louisiana, I am not going to coddle these anti-maxers feelings anymore. I'm going to call stupid things and people stupid because it's simply weaponized dissonance at this point and affects us all. Mind Pillow guy. Dan Crenshaw is realizing that hindsight is 20. What is going on with Dan Crenshaw? I didn't see that much.
Did you miss the Dan Crenshaw video?
Yeah. Oh, was that yesterday?
Yeah. We might have to do that again with you if you want to. It was him.
Let's do this.
So we have to wait for Bradley. Bradley's away, stepped away for just a few minutes. So maybe we do a few more IMs and get back.
Okay. I'm in Brazos Valley, Texas. We're out of ICU beds here. And there's an anti-mask protest going on at the A&M campus. Can y'all try and get syndication on FM and AM stations trying to get to the boomers? Yeah, I think that is unlikely. But Wyoming Ryan, humans get hurt and die. It's normal. However, I surround myself with these guns. Wyoming loves its coal and people out here to argue about the birds all the time. I always respond with this data. 10 long gnomes. Can we get a mask required at all times indoor without proof of vaccination for DC? That way anyone on the floors will need to prove their vaccination status. Misfit Black Girl. Marjorie Taylor Green says that I'm completely for people being allowed to make choices, medical choices for themselves and their families, but opposes abortion. Not that I expect consistency from Republicans, but that's messed up to me.
Good point.
Yes, indeed. Dick's burden in prison. Why do you have to say Sebadet for YouTube? Because they will, they have a problem. They have restrictions on what.
Because we're being censored.
Being censored. Country Mouse Tech. Love the Cartman-esque pronunciation of that product that you just mentioned. Trans Report.
Cartman.
Okay, we got the Crenshaw clip. All right. Let's see it.
I can't tell if he's joking or serious. Problems, but don't kid yourself into believing that's why we lost. It's not. It's not.
You're wrong.
I'll tell you openly.
You're wrong.
I'll tell you, and I'm not wrong.
Yes, you are. I have plenty of proof. I have proof in Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia.
You did the Maricopa.
Yeah.
How did that turn out?
And guess what? It's going to turn out, and it's going to flip.
Okay,
you watch. You're going to see firsthand.
It won't. And you've got to flip all 5 states to make it.
You know how they're stealing the elections?
All right, I'm not going to argue with this. I'm not going to argue with this. It's just something. Look, I'll say it openly. This is something you got to accept. Is there a lot of voter fraud? Yeah, there probably is. Enough that Trump won? No, absolutely not.
You'll see.
Absolutely not. 5 different states, hundreds of thousands of votes.
Yes.
You're kidding yourself.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Where was this that Dan Crenshaw
It
did?
was a fundraiser for a Senate candidate in Illinois.
Interesting. I mean, is this something he's ever said publicly, or does he not?
No, he's always been like before the election, he was spreading concerns about mail-in balloting and stuff like this. He's been a fence sitter on this sort of stuff, dipping his toes in where he can, but also trying to be the more respectable representative of GOP at the same time.
It's I'm sort of, I guess, I wonder how conscious of a thing he did that. I mean, has he been that explicit anywhere though, Alice?
I don't think so.
It's sort of fascinating. And now what's he going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, he's already being pummeled for this, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw the fallout and I didn't know what they were talking about. I can't remember what context I saw this. But it really got around. They were very upset at him for denying the fact that Donald Trump won the election. It's tough, I guess.
Right.
You really gotta play it out when you're one of those guys. The Sport Report. We talk a lot about human infrastructure, but humans have tushies. The reconciliation. Okay. Dr. Chaos, MD. Gotta love the argument that the price of all goods is going up, but wages should not go up in tandem, which is why aid to workers should be removed or just given to employers with no mention of forcing those employers to use those benefits for workers' wages. Sad man. Hey, MR Crew, does Marjorie Green get all the data from Florida about how bad it is there and just not care? Or does she have the people around her that tell her what she wants to hear? That's really that bad. She applies to other outspoken. I think she just doesn't believe it.
I agree.
Blue Roots Radio. Is this app working? Yes. Robo Gorka. Go to Sunset Lake now and use the Robo Gorka for a discount on your Seba Day daily dose of Sebastian Gorka. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator. The only consistent thing about anti-vaxxers is their selfishness. I have no empathy for these people. Sam is not a boomer. He's fully ensconced in Generation X. That's definitely not something a boomer would say. Harry, has anyone asked the Afghans what they would like us to do? I mean, I'm sure that some want us to stay and some want us to go, but we don't have, I guess, enough. We are not capable, it appears, to do what needs to be done to stabilize that country. If 20 years of presence in that country can't prevent the Taliban, hasn't built enough of a civil society to prevent the Taliban from taking it over in a matter of days. I don't know what it is that people think that we could do with more time there.
David Adler of the Progressive International at Prague INTL on Twitter has reached out to leftists in Afghanistan. They're going to have a statement by the end of the week.
Oh, nice.
I mean, it's such a horrible situation. True North Politics. Canada's state-run media has been really hamming up the devastation as a result of pulling out of Afghanistan this week. Absolutely manufacturing consensus that it was a bad idea and that we may have to put pressure on to maintain democracy. No talks of the origin of Taliban. I mean, look, we do have to reckon with this. We do have to reckon with it. And, it's something I've been saying for a couple of months now. We're going to have to reckon with this. We're going to sit here and watch this tragedy unfold. And, the problem with these wars that we get involved in is the sunk cost fallacy. And we don't want people to have died in vain. We don't want the people that we killed accidentally as collateral damage to die in vain. We don't want the soldiers and military personnel we send over there die in vain. But the fact of the matter is, they did. They largely did. And there's no way to prevent that reality. It's just that what needs to be done is more about somehow create some type of institutional memory so that we don't engage in these type of things again. Or that if there is an out, like the Taliban is ready to surrender 18 years ago, 19 years ago, 20 years ago.
We had the out very soon into the invasion.
Well, they were willing to negotiate the handover of bin Laden early on. I mean, there was multiple opportunities. Let's put it that way.
Keep them on nice for me.
Big Dick Cheney energy. Remember when Ann Coulter and other conservatives were calling for the handful of Americans who were infected with Ebola to be executed to protect the rest of the population? I guess their civil liberties didn't count. Echo Park taxpayer. Sam, Emma, Matt, what do you think about boosters now that we know more about Delta? Not dying of the strain is a perk, yes, but if we can stop the chain of transmission with our current batch, we can distribute globally, and we can't distribute globally fast enough. Natural immunity doesn't last. The virus isn't seasonal. Won't this go on forever if we don't keep up with the escape variants? I don't know that we can get booster shots out there, but they're doing booster shots now for the most vulnerable. I mean, look,
That's around 7 million people, so it's a small percentage.
It's a small percentage.
And I understand that concept. I mean, I think if the vaccine is made available, if booster shots are made available and it shows that it has efficacy and it's going to be widely available for, people who aren't immunocompromised or are under the age of 65 and that decision is made, I don't think it's wrong to get it because otherwise they'll just expire and sit there. But I don't agree with the allocation of booster shots to people who are less likely to, who have been vaccinated, like myself, before providing them to the rest of the world. But I think there's a significant likelihood that that's going to happen regardless.
I put aside the stop the chain of transmission with our current batch for a moment. If you're really worried about variants, getting it to immunocompromised people is the most important thing, because that's where you get your variants from people who are immunocompromised, where they don't, their immune system doesn't have the ability to fully thwart the virus. I don't know.
People with HIV, people with organ transplants, etc. Those are kind of some examples.
Yeah, I don't know if it would stop the chain of transmission if we had a third I don't understand exactly how it is, and it appears that you can have the same viral load if you're vaccinated as unvaccinated in terms of passing on the Delta variant. But I just don't know that there's enough data yet, because I've heard different, slightly different variations where, people just aren't quite sure yet exactly what happens with Delta and vaccinated people. We know that there's less deaths. We know that there's less hospitalizations. We think it makes you less susceptible to getting it. We think. I mean, it appears that way, but it's also, we're just not tracking this stuff enough. and we don't know if, like what I spoke to Mark Allen Derry for the other show. I said, do you think we're undercounting the number of vaccinated people who are getting COVID? He's like, without a doubt. We're undercounting it by sometimes it could be a factor of 4. And if you're asymptomatic and you're vaccinated, and even if you have symptoms and you're unvaccinated, because those people, the people who are unvaccinated, right? You got to remember, this is not just the only difference between vaccinated and unvaccinated is not just the vaccine, broadly speaking, painting with a broad brush here. The difference between vaccinated and unvaccinated also gives you clues to the fact that as to how seriously they take COVID in the first place, how sensitive they are to it being around them. An unvaccinated person who has the sniffles and a vaccinated person who has the sniffles at this point, I will put my money on the vaccinated person to go get a test before the unvaccinated person. Right? I mean, the vaccinated person, they got vaccinated because they believe COVID is real, that they have the ability to catch it. And they probably are aware of the fact now that vaccinated people can get breakthrough infections. Unvaccinated people are basically living in this world where, like, there is no COVID. It's not real. I mean, I think there are, certainly exceptions. I'm painting with a broad brush. I know firsthand of home care people who are not getting it. Their doctor said don't get it. It's just insanity to me.
I know of a doctor who still thinks hydroxychloroquine and no vaccines. Yeah. MAGA guy, coincidentally.
All right. One final call of the day. Calling from an 804. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is, and others. This is Canon from Virginia.
Canon from Virginia. Hello.
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. First, I'd like to say, much like our beloved Dave Rubin, I'm a high-level important ideas guy. And as such, a lot of the recent... Sorry?
Glad you called then. We need some high-level important ideas.
Oh, sorry. Well, the recent controversies regarding like anti-vaxxers and like parents fighting mask mandates has really gotten me to like start considering the knock-on effects of parenting and inadequate parenting. So I kind of have like a radical proposition that has two like prerequisites followed by like a conclusion. So the first is just, if an action is likely to cause significant harm to others or society at large, then we usually like regulate and license the performance of said action, a la driving, concealed carry, so forth. Inadequate parenting of a child is likely to, in both the short and long term, harm both the child and society, like in lower achievement of the child and increased likelihood for them to commit crimes against others. So kind of my radical idea, therefore, is that we ought to regulate and license who can parent, as inadequate parenting can cause significant harm to both the individual child and society at large.
Okay. And how would you assess this before the child comes?
Pardon?
How would you assess it before someone has children?
Well, I mean, I kind of like just build off what we already have, which is kind of like parents can individually choose whether or not they're going to engage in, say, a parenting class before they have said child. So essentially, I think much like driving, how it can cause a lot of harm to both individuals and society at large, that having some sort of licensing system or, some other lesser regulating system on who can parent might be a good idea to reduce the number of knock-on effects in the long term.
And those parenting classes, who gets to decide on the curriculum?
Well, that's the hard part because obviously we can't federally mandate this. It would have to be a state-by-state system.
I think there's a lot of hard parts.
Ideally, yeah, it is. I'll be honest, it is. But really, the issue that I see is that inadequate parenting can lead to like a lot of negative outcomes in the long term.
Wait, dude, hold on. I got to ask you this question. Are you serious?
Am I serious?
Yeah. Like, I agree with you that, like, yeah, inadequate parenting can lead to bad outcomes. And I would also agree that, like, people just in general can lead to bad outcomes. And there are also kids who really the parenting, can only mitigate problems with the children. And then there's, a situation where there's parents can only mitigate the problems that the environment has created for the children. I mean, I as a, if I'm sitting in a bar and I'm drunk and I'm talking about the idea that maybe we should just outlaw having children, or maybe just like there's an application process, and to be fair, it would also, be helpful for some parents to think twice about it. I mean, be careful, but
pairs nicely with Nomi's.
I can't think of something more difficult to do than to establish who's going to be a good parent, and then like it would be good to get some like parental training, like some basic stuff. But once you start getting into like anything that two people could disagree upon, right? I mean, fervently, like, yeah, okay, this is how you diaper, this is the color of the poop for the first 6 weeks, and then it changes here, whatever it is. But once you get into anything that you're talking about in terms of how you raise a child, yeah, there'd be like such a disaster. I mean, look at what happens just like in the schooling of children. I mean,
also,
look at what's happening with the masking.
If it's state by state, caller, I mean, the issue also is that, one, in Mississippi, what does a parenting class entail?
Exactly.
And who's going to be targeted as inadequate for parents in some place like Mississippi, right? And then or someplace in the South. And it's going to be predominantly Black people, and their standards for adequate parenting will be a lot applied in a probably more stringent way than those same standards would be applied to white parents. And
Absolutely.
how about
Not
if
just
you're
in
Muslim?
Mississippi. I mean,
Hold on, sorry. How about if you're Muslim? This is just another example, right? You're a Muslim and you're living in a red area or in like a purple area. I think Sharia law is detrimental to children, and of course, all Muslims are in favor of Sharia law. Raising a child in a Christian household is the only way to ensure that they're a moral and good citizen.
well, also, I think we should put like a wealth requirement.
Exactly, right? I mean, we had a caller talk about poverty, and you shouldn't be able to have so many kids if you're if you don't have enough money, the means. So
Never mind just money. Like, I think maybe what we should be doing is like, you need to go to an Ivy League school to be eligible to have children.
Some guy literally called in with that argument a few weeks ago. Like, you need to have
Seriously?
a certain amount of money. Remember Emma?
Thursday.
Yeah,
Thursday,
It was a
yeah.
Thursday. It said you need to have like a certain amount of money in the bank before you can have kids.
So, dude, I mean, do you see like where the problems are with this?
No, I totally acknowledge all those. I agree. There are a lot of issues. Not only getting it passed would be near impossible, but even if we did get something like that passed, and it would be a state-by-state thing, that would cause a lot of issues since there are a lot of discriminatory states. My only contention is that it seems like that there are even some basic things that we could further educate potential parents on that could ultimately, hopefully, lower knock-on effects down the line. And I'm not saying it needs to be something so drastic, just something, maybe just requiring potential parents to take a class or two, and just on basic non-arguable stuff. I mean, we've done this for driving and concealed carry. I mean,
okay.
Right. No, I agree with you. But it's just a lot more subjective. I mean, what makes a good driver is a lot, lot less subjective than what makes someone a good parent.
Also, you can have a baby in nature. Like a car is part of our commerce system.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I'm not talking about having the child. I'm just talking about raising a child.
No,
I don't care who has a child.
I understand. But if you're going to, license people on whether they pass and qualify to raise a child, then you're doing that with have a child. Should there be more help for parents? Yes. Should we educate people more about how to be a good parent? Definitely. But we could also do is help people be better citizens in school and teach them civics and have a sense that we're, connected. And, that will have also positive knock-on effects for parenting. But I think, yeah, I mean, like I say, if we bump into each other at a bar, we could talk about this for an hour. But on some level, it's a little bit fantastical.
No, I totally agree. It is.
All right.
I don't see something like that. It's kind of like the end of capitalism. I don't see that happening within my lifetime. This is like a long-term idea.
Yeah. All right. I mean, fair enough. I appreciate it. Thanks for the call. I think we should just all be orbs, and no one should be allowed to have children.
I think I'm hopeful that capitalism will end before parenting.
I mean, honestly, I would hope. All right. We're done with calls for the day. Apologize, ladies and gentlemen, if you had you waiting for long. We're going to do a couple IMs and get going. I meant to get out.
Wow,
of
the
here
bar
really
rescue
quick.
guy's trending.
He is? Oh, good.
Yeah. Well,
all right. 5 of these. Joe in Kansas City. Sam, considering you the VCR, I already did that. Anarcho PMC. I just got a notification. Okay. Yes, I know. We had a problem. One of the software developers I work with has been out sick for almost 2 weeks, and the last convo I had with him is he doesn't believe in COVID. Oy. Sam only fan. Hey, I'm our crew. Sam, I love you, brother, and I love Digby. This is just a humble suggestion, but why don't you think there's value in having a diversity of voices on our Ring of Fire, such as having rotating guests where every week you have someone new to run down the news of the week, something similar to what's been happening in the last couple of episodes. For example, one week Digby, the next week Ryan Grip, because you know what? I really enjoy the conversations with Digby, and B, it's like, I don't know, like it's
too much work. Like,
I mean, honestly, people don't understand like the scheduling thing. Having regular guests makes it much easier. But I really like talking to Digby, and for a myriad of reasons. But maybe someday. I mean, we've mixed it up on this show quite a bit. Let's see. Josh from Tucson, Bald Eagle Flamer is now my nickname on Grindr.
Wait, what did it say? Sorry, Bald Eagle what?
Bald Eagle Flamer.
Ryan from Michigan, as an educator, I'm worried that fights over masks are going to worsen our teacher shortage. Oh, without a doubt it will. Without a doubt. All right, 2 more. Jibber jabber. Everyone loves to criticize, defund the police messaging, but won't or can't offer up anything better. I've suggested repeal and replace the police before. How about stop the police harassment? Come on, guys, let's brainstorm here.
I don't want to brainstorm. It's already happened.
Let the activists do it, I think. I think podcasters should let the activists and people in the street maybe come up with the slogans. I think
you don't know what you're talking about.
Too much on messaging, I think.
Vinny Holiday. Hi, all. This is the final IM of the week, ladies and gentlemen. No, I can't find it. Oh, I don't even have that up. Hi, all. Do you think there's a synergy between the anti-labor attitude of small business owners and an economy that makes the average person feel like they can be a small business by taking part in the gig economy? On some level, there's something to that. We're going to develop that more, and we'll talk more about it later. Matt, Bradley, Emma, good job this week. See you folks on Monday. Oh, wait. Did you cut me off?
Nope.
Eamon Hawk's GoFundMe. Check it out, folks. The guy who did the Crowder video. Check that out. We'll put a link in our YouTube and podcast description, and we'll pump it again on Monday. See you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid.